Great. Thank you, Chris. It's great to be here to see some very old friends that I've had for a long time in the audience, as well as current colleagues. I was really moved by the things that were presented this morning, and thinking about this, that where we really need to go are things like community-owned and controlled microgrids for electricity, local government-owned biofuels made from sewage that are created here in our cities. And I'd be very interested in talking more about this issue, about the difference between community-controlled and local government-controlled, and where the right mix is there. In terms of my presentation, I had thought that let me make sure that I'm advancing this correctly, and what do I point at there? That what I would be talking to are people who really wanted to know about how we do energy efficiency programs. I can say that a 40% target for energy efficiency is extremely aggressive, and actually kind of difficult to justify in terms of energy savings, because the cost to get that in the residential sector is high, and we're in a very mild climate. The first house I owned, which I should have a picture of, in San Francisco, was built in 1905 with square nails and no heating system. You can live here. The Alonis did it with no heating systems. So how can you justify reducing the energy efficiency in a heating system that you use very little? It's hard to do that. Maybe just ripping them out altogether is the best way to do it. So I'm going to talk about some of the procedures and thinking that we do in order to set up our energy efficiency program, in fact, a lot of our programs. And all programs that we can do with local government have kind of 4 fundamental elements. One is information and education. This was an iPhone app that we worked with an app developer to put our banner on it and to help people identify the right kind of energy efficient lighting in their apartment or home. And then they could push a button and it would go through and create a list of a shopping list, essentially, that would get forwarded to a local hardware store that would then drop ship it back to the user. So it was a way of trying to, an information education strategy. We also use incentives, lots of different kinds of incentives. Sometimes it's money, and sometimes it's getting to the front of the head of the planning department line or the building department line if you go green. This was, we were offering a free, in exchange, you bring us your incandescent lamp, this torchio type lamp, and we would give out an energy efficient one. We had 1,500 people show up in Chinatown on a rainy day. 2 passing Canadian tourists thought it was a religious ritual. And then technical assistance. We have a number of engineers, speak multiple languages, who go out to small businesses and multifamily buildings and actually talk to them and help create a plan and get them the resources that they need to make these changes. With the incentives, it becomes a pretty powerful package, but just providing technical assistance is really, the hand-holding is what people need. We found that doing our very first small business program, our focus group told us, well, with the incentives, it becomes a pretty powerful package, but just providing technical assistance is really, the hand-holding is what people need. We found that doing our very first small business program, our focus group told us, well, A, small businesses, we don't go to meetings, and B, we don't read the mail. So if you want to come and talk to us, you have to come and talk to us. You walk in, talk to the person at the cash register, and if that's not the owner, find out when they're going to be back, and you have to come back, and it's very, very time-intensive work. But it's absolutely necessary to have a program. Financing is kind of a technical assistance process. I don't know if any of you have heard of the property assessed clean energy financing approach. It's kind of basically putting the bill on your property tax and letting the city collect the money. And because the city's they're standing in there saying, hey, we're going to collect one way or another, it allows the bank to provide a slightly lower interest rate. And finally, law is that the city has the power to write laws, and we do that. Think think about the market adoption curve, you start in the lower right, or lower left, excuse me, with nobody adopting the new technology, and you go all the way up to the top, where the laggards, those are the last people in the who are ever going to do it, and you apply different of the strategies that I just mentioned, information technology, incentives, et cetera, until you get to the full market penetration. So our program addresses all markets, commercial, multifamily, small business, and single-family homes. We don't have a program that directly addresses renters. That's kind of the last piece that we're trying to figure out how to get money to actually do something. There was some mention about our programs. We've got some pretty impressive results so far. We're dealing with about 1,000 businesses and building owners a year. Funding sources. A lot of the money comes through the California Public Utilities Commission. It is a very heavy regulatory process. BayREN is the Bay Area Regional Energy Network. The 9 Bay Area counties have joined together, and we've kind of created a jailbreak. We've gotten out of the stranglehold that the utility holds over us because they control everything. But through this, while the money goes through the utility, they have to pay our invoices under orders from the CPUC, but we're running programs with direct input from the state energy division rather than control from PG&E, so we're able to design our own programs. And we're hoping that the REN and other RENs throughout the state will grow and flourish and do more of the work. I've only got a few seconds. We can get into the weeds on boiler retrofits, but basically these are the things that the city can do, the city staff can do. The things in the red box are the things that we can't do. We cannot go in and actually install stuff as city workers in people's homes and businesses because of risk management. It's an insurance issue. You can't. It's also a union issue. You just can't have city workers in doing that kind of work. It's a different legal structure. Another thing is, so we also can't do the sales. We cannot actually sit there and write the contracts out because then the city buys all that liability. And finally, incentive payments, just because the city is really slow at making the payments. So we use an outside contractor to make the payments to contractors and building owners. We're able to make payments in 2 weeks, where it takes PG&E about 3 months to make the payment. So contractors are really happy to work with us because they get paid quickly. And I believe I'm out of time. I was going to talk about marketing and our staff, 2 of whom got married, so you have to be a little bit careful about who's actually going out on the audits. And then processes and data management, which is a huge issue. There's a lot of fight going on about access to customer data, because if we have the data, then we can understand how much savings are we actually getting. A lot of times we don't know, we have no idea. But data management's really important. You have to know where every light bulb went in every room in every business and be able to tell you exactly what happened. There's got to be a lot of quality assurance and a lot of quality control. I can talk more about that if anybody's interested. Thank you.
Thank you, Kel. And I'd like to introduce Mia Katahara from Stop Waste.
And I'm going to do kind of an overview of, and we lead the multifamily program regionally. So I'm going to do an overview about that program, but first I kind of want to lay the context of why multifamily is important and why it's kind of been underserved so far. So multifamily composes a good chunk of the housing stock and the people and houses a good chunk of the people living in California. What you'll notice, though, is the income disparity between the people living in single-family homes versus multifamily homes, so apartment dwellers. So if you see, single-family, the percentage of people living in single-family versus multifamily, you do see more people living in single-family. However, the percentage of low-income people living in both housing types, you'll see a disproportionate number of people living in multifamily. It's more affordable generally, it's pretty common sense that people making less money are living in apartments. Another graph to show the disparity between owners and renters. Obviously, low-income people are more likely to be renters. And this chart here shows that among renters, the vast majority are individually metered for their utilities or for electricity and natural gas that's consumed within their units. So really, these people are paying their own utility bills. If you're a renter, you know that. And just another slide to just show kind of owner versus renter disparities. When I found this through the US Census site, I was pretty shocked at just how different it is. The average household income for owners across all of the counties in the Bay Area versus renters. So it would follow naturally that more of a renter's income is also going towards housing. And by housing, we mean everything that's included in being able to live habitably. So that's your rent, as well as all of your utilities. So when we think about where do we want to focus our energy efficiency work, who needs it the most, we're talking about people whose budget, more of their percentage of their budget is going towards utility bills. However, historically, multifamily has been underserved, and it's not just by chance. It's a very difficult sector to serve. Some of the key challenges are that the building stock is very diverse. It's not all the homes don't just look the same the way single family generally does. There are different types of structures, different heights versus garden style structures. There are different systems that are either central boiler systems or individual in-unit furnaces, different metering configuration, who's paying for what. It's just a very complex sector, which means that if people were trying to create a program that was easy to implement, that wouldn't work because it'd be kind of a cookie cutter program. What we've come to realize is that you do have to have a very customized approach to multifamily, and that just means a more complex and more robust program, which is not what was in place before, which hopefully we've come to address now. A critical issue in multifamily that we are still struggling with is the split incentive. So as I showed you, the tenants are paying the majority of the in-unit bills. So one of the main drivers for anybody doing an energy efficiency improvement, aside from comfort and health, are utility savings. And the person that's investing in the building is the property owner. And if they're not going to reap those utility savings because the tenant's paying the utility bill, then they have no motivation to invest. So that's the gist of the split incentive. Property owners are most focused on just the systems that are going to give them a direct payback, unfortunately. So ways that we're going to try to overcome this are rating systems and disclosure that you're basically telling the tenants how much energy they're going to use, but which is also tied to data access issues because each person's paying their own utility bills. It's difficult to get a whole building picture of how much energy is being used. Hopefully we can get over that through aggregate data. At the same time, there is a huge opportunity in multifamily. We have many units within one project, many households served. The majority were built before the energy code, so there's a lot of inefficient buildings out there that could be helped with very quick measures. There are trigger events within a building's life cycle. The property owners think of these as kind of assets that they need to maintain over a life cycle, so they do have trigger events like these that create an opening for introducing energy efficiency upgrades. So we've moved to a whole building type of approach in multifamily, which means that we're looking at addressing any and all of these different measures. And I'll also point out, in addition to energy saving measures, we are interested in water, renewable energy, and green building upgrades, which also improve the tenants' health through low VOC and other type of indoor air quality measures as well as energy and water. Here's a long list, and I have less than a minute, of multifamily programs available. And I'll just say that some of these, you know, it's been a difficult challenge to just piece together different programs that are kind of targeting multifamily in the past. So now we've created whole building programs. And I'll talk just briefly about the Bay Area multifamily building enhancements, which is the biggest one that's going on in the Bay Area right now. And here are also some financing opportunities for people that want to finance the rest of after rebate balances. Now again, I'll just say that this is for property owners. Unfortunately, we haven't gotten to serve the tenant sector specifically except with the utility low-income programs that serve in unit. Okay, I'm going to fly through this. Cal talked about the rents. We're basically offering cash rebates to the property owners and free energy consulting to discuss which kind of measures to select. Basic eligibility criteria. I have brochures that will lay that out for you if you're interested after. And that's it. So I just want to conclude by saying where we've gotten pretty far from where we were a couple of years ago. We're recognizing that we haven't solved all the problems. We still have a far way to go in addressing multifamily, but I think that we're on a good path towards getting there.
Yes. So I'm giving you this story because an IT band is this band that starts from our knee, goes all the way up through to our glutes, and is structurally incredibly important for our ability to move forward. And yet, it is a band that if there's physical limitations, you can't walk, you can't exercise, it's extremely painful. There's a way to solve this. Who knows of the roller at the gym, those hard rollers that you roll on? Yes. Who knows that they're really painful? They really hurt, and you don't want to do it. I go down there, I have my band, I'm like, oh God, I do not want to roll on this. But I know if I roll on it and I go through the pain, that it feels better. The reason I'm giving this visual is this is exactly what we're trying to do with locating jobs for low-income communities within the energy sector. We have a system that works. It doesn't work. We think it works, but we've done so many things to badgerize it that it actually doesn't fulfill our needs. And so we have to work into that system. We have to alter it. It is painful. That's the role that Emerald Cities plays. We play like the physical therapists. We are looking at the system and we're looking at ways to shake it up those muscles around the IT band, around the system of workforce, so that it works for communities, low-income communities and communities of color who have not participated in energy efficiency or the green sector. So that's the framing I want to give you as to who Emerald Cities is. We are a campaign. We are working to help identify, implement projects, target strategies, and influence stakeholders to green our communities, green our cities, build our communities, and strengthen our democracy. The campaign started about 4 years ago, 2008, 5 years ago, right when the stimulus dollars started coming in. And it's located, oh, I need some help actually, I forgot to. Who wants to be my partner? Okay, thanks. Next slide. We are a campaign based in DC in terms of our local support, but we are in Atlanta, Cleveland, Los Angeles, Milwaukee, New York, Oakland, Portland, Providence, San Francisco, and Seattle. Our national team supports us by providing technical assistance, financing, policy support, targeting labor standards, and workforce development. Again, always to this end. So we support the cities to accomplish equity in the energy efficiency market. Next is. We have noticed in speaking to government, they don't have the capacity to do this one-on-one conversation. They cannot do it. They can set up the infrastructure, they can set up the incentives, they don't have the capacity to work deeply with the portfolio owners. And we are looking at the barriers, both the barriers coming in, low-income communities, women, veterans, disadvantaged communities, and the barriers within the green sector in terms of people upskilling. people actually getting more qualified to do better work and move on, because you got to move the pipeline along in order for people to access the jobs. In order to do that, we are helping to develop and identify projects. Next slide. Our primary focus is on MUSH market, municipal, universities, schools, hospitals, and multifamily affordable housing and nonprofits. Currently, we're focusing in these sectors: public housing, K-12, community colleges, affordable public housing, nonprofits. And our basic role is to create community workforce agreements. That is an avenue when you take public infrastructure and you target local hire and you target apprenticeship utilization for communities. We have a very strong history in that here, local hire. We don't necessarily apply it. And that's, again, the role of Emerald Cities is to see that it gets applied, that you have these legal documents that say, we're gonna have local hire, we're gonna hire from the community, but they don't necessarily get done because there's no monitoring and there's no compliance. Next slide. Briefly, our project stages. We target an asset portfolio owner, like a multifamily affordable housing developer. We engage community stakeholders. We define how we can be of value. We sign an MOU saying they actually are gonna work with us. And then we help develop the scope. And that can be from financing strategies, community benefits outcome, and workforce integration. Again, it's about the community workforce agreement. Next slide. Municipalities, community college, multifamily affordable housing, nonprofits. Those are our 4 basic targets, and I want to give you some examples of some of the work we've been doing recently. Next. So, municipalities in Cleveland, Cuyahoga, we had a bunch of municipalities that got stimulus dollars. They identified $35 million in projects, but they didn't have a way to actually implement those projects. So Emerald Cities helped set up a financing structure where they are going to be able to sign up to get these projects done, but in order to get the financing, they have to have community workforce outcomes. So far, since June, we have $6.5 million dollars in projects signed up, $9.5 million coming up in the pipeline. We've anticipated that 336 jobs, high road jobs, will be developed. Next slide. Oakland, Peralta Community College District. We have a community college district campaign, but we have to localize it. We have to work with the asset holder. They don't have the capacity to do this. So we signed an MOU. We helped benchmark their buildings. We helped get them a grant, PG&E grant for $200K for their best center. We've done a summary of their engineering, and we've helped finance a strategy for them. What are we currently doing now? We're identifying how to take a cohort of students, union, contractors, through a curriculum in order for that they can upskill, but also that we can target some of the projects for jobs. So this is our role. It's like the PT. We're taking individual challenges and problems and people who have difficulty moving and saying, how can we help you move so this is effective with these equity outcomes. Next slide. San Francisco. The director of San Francisco, Avni Jamdar, is right here. This is an example, dollars, ARA dollars. We got $700K ARA stimulus dollars for a multifamily affordable housing mission housing development. And they said, we want the community workforce outcomes. So we worked with Emerald City, San Francisco. We had community partners engaged, and they were able to target 8 journey level positions, 2 apprenticeship jobs, and 6 of those were in San Francisco. That is direct visibility of what our intent is. Now they're they're phasing up to do 20 buildings with 1,000 units, approximately $5 to $8 million, using the innovative financing strategies, and hopefully to use Bay Rent. Because again, you have these programs that are available, but the developer doesn't necessarily have the capacity or the skill to set the strategies in place, get the rebates, and that's what Emerald Cities is helping to do. And then leverage these community workforce agreements for jobs. Next slide. And finally, we want to also localize local nonprofits. So we're working with Allen Temple. Allen Temple is an institution that helps low-income communities who come out of prison, who don't have GEDs, who don't have financial literacy, who don't have educational strength. That's the perfect place that we want to help enrich their ability to access these jobs. So what better way to do than put a project on their campus and help get them informed and educated about how they can participate. So that way, that's what we've done. We've benchmarked the building, we've provided lighting and solar, we've facilitated rebates. We're looking at a solar project, and we want to be able to do a community workforce agreement so the constituents coming through their doors have access to jobs in the clean energy field. So in summary, this is where we act. We work with the project partners. We act as a coordinator. We create a community workforce agreement. We look at job opportunities. We help with the design. We want to accelerate the results of the jobs. Ultimately, that provides us all these wonderful things: reduce carbon, lower energy, skilled workforce, but we continue to feed in the ability for local asset holders to participate in this workforce outcome. Thank you. That's it.
So now we're open for questions and answers, and should we be using the portable mic for people who would like to pose a question and for recording purposes?
Yes.
Is someone available to perhaps assist in getting the microphone to folks with a question? So we're open for questions. Yes.
Sorry. I'll walk over there. I've spent the last couple of days at the Public Utilities Commission and demand response workshops, and because what we're seeing now, or that starting in 2015 and then getting worse and worse, that as we get more and more renewable energy on the grid, that the daily load curve starts to look like a duck, where just there are so many self-generators that in the middle of the day the demand curve goes down. What they're finding is that they need demand response to potentially, or that's one potential avenue to help to move hours to be able to actually utilize the precious, renewable energy, or to shift it out of the evening ramp hours when the sun goes down, rather than just having to build more natural gas plants and ramp up and use fuel-intensive ramps. And it seems like a really natural fit that if there are going to be incentives for customers to do this, this is all just completely new and under development. But have you guys thought about how demand response might fit into your programs? Because if customers are incentivized to do this, it might be something that would really be amazingly helpful.
Yes, thank you. I was at least yesterday's workshop, and I was at another workshop the day before on exactly this issue. How that can be addressed with energy efficiency was the comment that I made, that we want to bundle energy efficiency, demand response, renewable energy in microgrids for the purpose of thinking about this as emergency response, as well as the obvious support for the grid, because that way we can get Homeland Security money, FEMA money, other money sources can come in. It's really hard to justify it just in terms of the energy efficiency money. And all I can say is behind that is the California Public Utilities Commission. Things get very complicated, and sometimes they're not very smart the way they're done. We just had a determination recently that the value of energy efficiency and lighting in multifamily buildings was dropped by 2/3 because they're assuming that the lighting is only on 8 hours a day. Now, why would you think that in a building which was required by law to have lighting on in the hallways 24 hours a day? But such is the nature of the thing. So we're fighting against that. It has a big impact on how much money we can offer to the building owners for the efficiency. So the rules are being written on the demand response. That's what the workshops are about. And once they're written, then we'll figure out what we can get done in the marketplace compared to the way the rules are written. How that would impact workforce development is that the more work that's available that leverages less money from the building owner, it means that we'll get more building owners into the game. And it's all about how fast you can push the market. How much can you get done? We think about how much can you get done at one site, and our Bay Rent program has a goal of 10% energy reduction. Now that's pretty mild compared to the 40% reduction of the goal that we're trying to head for. So 10% is actually kind of difficult. The boiler, the lighting, what else can you do? Mild climate, again, is a problem. So if we're trying to get as deep as we can, and then you try to get as many into the program as you can. But I'm just asked the question, if I was to offer you a free retrofit in your home or apartment, absolutely free, how many would say, oh, that's a great idea, I'd like to get an energy retrofit? Okay, not everybody raised their hand. Okay, what if I said, okay, great, sign here and we'll be in tomorrow? Oh, okay. Be sure to have everything packed up because we're going to make a lot of dust, right? Have your cat, dog, whatever it is out because they can't be in there. I mean, the amount of preparation you have to go through is not small. You got to pack up almost everything you've got, get it all off the walls because we're going to be drilling holes. It's actually quite an intrusive process. So not everybody is ready to do that. And if you talk to 100 business owners, there are only a few of them that are actually ready to have crews show up that night, or the next night, or the following week. And so the market will only accept a certain amount. So how the rules are written really has a big impact on how much market penetration we're going to get and how deep you can go in energy efficiency retrofits in each home. So our problem in San Francisco is if we put solar on every single available rooftop, and we got some NASA type software that went through and digitized every single rooftop in San Francisco, and we added it all up, minus the shadows and other little features that are on the roof and everything, we get 7% of our load can be met with solar. If we cut all of our energy use in half, we could then meet our load with 14%, but it still means that we've got to get 86% of our power's got to come from somewhere else, because we can't generate it locally. So we're going to need transmission, we're going to need big systems out in the valley or in the desert, or wave energy farms off the coast, or other things to meet the current load. Even if we can drop it by half, we still have a lot that we're going to have to import. Same kind of calculation, but I can't imagine it might be somewhat different, but not completely different.
Yeah, go ahead.
My name is Bob Gould. I'm with Physicians for Social Responsibility. Perhaps you answered some of my questions, but it was a more general question to sort of ascertain, well, a little bit of a background. We've been working with some folks in 350.org in terms of work at the Bay Area Air Quality Management District in terms of strengthening their climate action plan to meet the goals that we have by 2050. So I guess my question was trying to get more of a general hit on how much can we expect, say, of the reductions that we need to fit in with those long-term goals from efficiency type plans of this, if there's any way to gauge that. Beyond the San Francisco, thinking more of California meeting its AB 32 goals, things like that. And I'm particularly interested because of the push consistently from the nuclear power advocates, et cetera, that we can't get to these goals unless they're going to bring on stuff like that.
Not my specialty.
I don't have a simple answer for you. I think I'll try to describe a little bit of the difficulty just in the efficiency market, whether it's single family, multifamily, commercial, whatever, it's these same issues. How many of you have an iPhone or a smartphone? My understanding is that every single one of those, actually, the amount of energy that's assigned to it is about the equivalent of a refrigerator. Because there are server farms that now are hosting everything on the cloud, and they're running 24 hours a day because you might turn on your phone at any moment and need that app. So, there's new load coming online. It's changing. So it's not in your home. It's somewhere else that you're actually drawing it from. I think the answer to that question is really unknown. I will say that as you mentioned the AB 32, the Global Warming Act, And the Air Resources Board is doing an update, a 5-year update of their scoping plan. They at least have some verbiage in there about what local governments can do, what can be done at the local level. Because the very first version was, everything was directed at what the state could do, what state agencies could do, very big stuff. You know, we can do water pumping, and you know, down at the Tehachapi's, which I think those pumps absorb 5% of all electricity in California is moving the water over the Tehachapi's to LA. So they could affect things like that. When it came to local governments, they just had like a half a page of all the things we could do, but with no savings assigned to it about what local governments could do and no money. So, which is key for us, is in order to do anything, you need money. So now with the update, they've got a lot more in there about what we might do. So we're going to be commenting to try to get as much in there as possible and to get them to assign goals to it, because once goals are assigned, then it's possible for money to get to assign to it. But it's not just efficiency. I mean, we've got renewables and we've got biofuels, and the city of San Francisco is going to B20 right now. Departments that haven't achieved 100% B20 are even slapped on the wrist, or some of them don't have the fuel tanks that can host the B20 so that the trucks can actually use that. So all of those, the infrastructure needs to be upgraded. There are a lot of opportunities out there, a lot of efficiency. I think all of it is unknown. We have all these rules that are being written. The system is broken in terms of regulating energy efficiency in California, and we're hoping that the current commission is going to be able to fix it to be able to, so we can get deeper into the market. But, you know, 20% I would say would be very aggressive, to answer your question.